Thanks for joining the channel here over at Subscribestar. Thanks for the pocket knives, the comic books, the weird little flashlight that's also a cigarette lighter, the seeds, and the cash. People sent cash. Thank you for that. So the media has been covering woke Indiana Jones. I mean, covering it and covering for it more is what I mean. And they're also kind of like doing damage control for the movies that are coming out. One of them is Ghostbusters Afterlife, the sequel to that movie that bombed. Like people always think 2016 the woke, I guess 2016 Ghostbusters. It wasn't really woke. That's not fair to say. It just was a bad movie. It's like the comedy was way too rushed. But that movie bombed. Obviously, it bombed because you're doing something sacred. Ghostbusters 1 and 2 were very good movies. That movie bombed, and then the Afterlife movie with the kids bombed because it's like, look, people looked at it and like, it's a kids movie. It's not really. It doesn't feel like Ghostbusters. So that movie bombed, and they go, oh well, they're going to make a sequel to it. Yeah, because Sony owns the name Ghostbusters. Like, you pretty much have to make a sequel to it, even if the sequel goes out and bombs, which it probably will. And then they'll put it on the shelf for 5 years, and they go like, can we just, maybe we're going to have to make a movie that's not woke, because eventually we're going to run out of money. Eventually it's going to happen. So, the media has been doing this weird amount of damage control for Indy, and CBR is like the amount of money they make in clickbait advertisement has got to be insane. But actually, my favorite is the Mary Sue. So you've probably noticed that Hollywood has had some very visible bombs lately. Flashes is one of them, but I mean, there's a ton of movies where it's kind of occurring to people that Hollywood and the audience seem to have fundamental differences in a worldview, and they're getting further and further apart, and you're seeing that reflected because people are not going to see the movies. Movies are not supposed to just break. Oh, thank God, our movie Shang-Chi broke even after 2 years. Yeah, that's not, that you're not making movies to break even. That's insane. Movies are supposed to be big hits. This movie, Indiana Jones, was supposed to be a big hit on the level of over $1 billion. And I don't know if they really, you'd have to talk to these people. You just have to talk to them and like really know what they're thinking. Like, is this all cultural Marxism, or is there some part of them deep down that thinks they're going to connect with an audience? I think, if I said before, I think it's all cultural Marxism. I don't think there's any part of these people that are sincere. I think they know they're putting out movies that are designed to send a message. I think they knew when they sat down and charted this movie out that yes, this movie was most likely going to lose money, and that's going to kind of continue in Hollywood until eventually they run out of money. But I don't think they're going to stop short of that. And yes, I know how crazy that sounds, but ignore me saying it and look at what Hollywood has been doing lately, and you'll reach that same crazy conclusion where until it finally hits you that listen, are they lizard people worshiping Moloch? All right, maybe a little bit of hyperbolic, but this is a religion to them. They have a belief system, and they're willing to spend the investors' money, including to the point of burning the company down. They're not going to turn around and make movies that aren't woke. That's not even on the table for a lot of these people. So there's this other movie that came out, Sound of Freedom. I'll try to watch it tonight, and you wonder why there aren't more movies that deal with. I think that's dealing with the Epstein Island type of stuff. Or even movies that deal with sleazy guys in Hollywood, and they'll, like the Weinstein stuff. And they go, oh, here's a sleazy guy in Hollywood, Mr. Blonde Hair, Blue Eyed. Yeah, that's exactly what we envision. Or movies that have Christian themes, like Mel Gibson is one of the few guys that's out there making those movies. You kind of wonder, I suspect that there's an audience for more Christian-based movies, or at least with some themes running through the background. They don't have to be overly preachy, but I know there's an audience out there for that, and it's like it's weird that it's lacking. It's just that Hollywood's just this black hole, and the stuff that's coming from Hollywood is like they open up the gates of hell. It seems like Hollywood is so off base with what most people want, but they keep pushing this Weimar cancer. When I go over to a laptop, I'm going to have to get an auto scroll set up because there's a lot to go through with these. Her rankings of the movies are like just the stupidest. It's just, they're stupid to the point where, like, because the rankings of the movies are just in the order they came out. I mean, that coincidentally is also the rankings of how good the movies are. So, and sometimes you wonder if they're doing this stupid stuff like this, like why Disney Star Wars was so much better than the originals. Like, okay, that's clickbait. The thing is, Hollywood is so off base with what people want, and they just keep pushing this Weimar levels of cancer, even to the point of, maybe in your lifetime you'll get and you'll see Disney actually run out of money. I don't think it would hit that point because this investors would sue for breach of fiduciary duty to take over the board and take the company in a different direction. I think that would happen first before. But the thing is, I mean, there's a lot of really, really woke people out there, and a lot of the mentality with mutual funds and Larry Fink is playing a big role in it. Also, it's other people's money. Anyway, so the thing is, we don't even have the same definitions for words. I was reading Bleeding Cool, and Rich Johnson was defining woke using because I was curious about ISOM, Eric July's thing, and I noticed that like CBR wasn't covering it, so I punched into Bleeding Cool, and there's like two passive aggressive articles on it, and Rich Johnson is giving his definition of woke, and it's just this Marxist newspeak definition. But he didn't mention, obviously, different groups are going to have different definitions of that word, because Eric July in the interview says like Isom comic, which I have sitting in front of me, I haven't read yet, is going to be like an unwoke comic or something, anti-woke or something like that. And so the Bleeding Cool thing was all just passive aggressive. Like woke is just about loving and caring for people, and if you're anti-woke, you're literally Satan. And you look at Eric July, it's like, I think it's just a guy making an action adventure comic, but it signals to them that you're not in with the narrative. So to us, it just means cringy, anti-white, preachy, anti-Christian. A lot of times, misandrist, straight up axe grinding, Bolshevik propaganda. It's just heavy things that are heavy-handed. Whatever they're grinding the axe, like, yeah, we get the message. We get the message. You really hate blonde people. Yes, we see that in literally everything now. The thing is, if you don't have the same definition for words, and you're kind of starting to not speak the same language, which is where the civilization is now. Interesting times. So I was reading through a bunch of these media articles yesterday during the fireworks, which running cover for Indiana Jones Dial of Destiny in CBR and the Mary Sue, which, in case you haven't seen it, is a horrible movie. If you're a fan of Harrison Ford, Star Wars, the Indy series, literally don't go see the movie. That's how bad it is, because you'll look at him and like, man, you just took this movie for the money. This movie sucks. It sucks so bad it goes back in time, and it poisons everything else Harrison Ford has been in. That's how bad the movie is. Because you look at him like, that $20 million or whatever he got paid for it, like, you were willing to take part in this crap movie that destroyed your earlier four movies just because you love them. You're so addicted to that money that, like, you didn't need the money. You were paid $36 million for the Star Wars movie, but he buys these little experimental airplanes and crashes them. The thing is, this movie also wasn't an indie movie because it didn't fit the established storyline. It broke canon. It broke the character. It, like, you watching it, like, it feels like a Golan Globus production if you gave them, hundreds of millions of dollars. But the media had to cover for the movie because it's woke, it's girl power, and it puts the evil blonde man in his place, and it tries to humiliate Indy throughout the film, which begs the question, why did they make the film that had such a decent shot to lose money? The budget was so high that it was going to have to be $1 billion plus return on investment, and this is like a fan base, an audience base that is men probably over 40 who Hollywood has worked very hard to alienate recently, and who Disney specifically has worked hard to alienate. And you think they're going to come and this is going to get a Top Gun type reception where you get like $1.5 billion, and you look at Indy and you look at what Disney and Hollywood, and there's like, the odds of that are really long. If you're going to make this movie, you probably should have dialed it down to $150 million, or realistically, you shouldn't have made the movie at all, because it's not about the money. Mangold and Disney tried to make a movie that destroyed Indy, even if it ends up costing them probably $250 million, which even for Disney is a respectable chunk of change, because they've had a lot of hits lately and not as many a lot of losses, not as many windfalls. And that Panda movie came out that was like $160 million loss, or $170 million loss. This is going to be, if this is over $200 million loss, and it's almost guaranteed to be, it might even be $250 million loss. That's got to be one for the history, because I know there's like some of the movies that had a bomb. You look through them, and the budgets just get worse and worse. And you look at a movie that costs like over $300 million, even if this was years ago. It's just insane how much money they can lose. The Flash is going to bomb too, but I don't think it's going to bomb. I think it's going to be like a $50 million, $100 million bomb. It's not going to be like historically breaking money. Anyway, so a lot of these articles are coming out. They're running cover for Ghostbusters Afterlife, that movie, which lost money, and then the sequel that's coming out, which is probably going to lose money also, even with Paul Rudd. I mean, now Paul Rudd's name is a little bit tarnished because he was in that Ant-Man movie, which got that guy Jonathan Majors, which, guilty or innocent, like just being involved in accusations like that, like street level stuff like that, is really bad for everything. So I mean, Hollywood is got a bunch of just dirt attached to it lately. The thing is, I don't know how much this destroys the indie series, because if the opening was so low domestically, then not many people saw it. Now it's starting to spiral downhill because word of mouth is going around about how shockingly bad it is. This and Flash are just two huge bombs. And then there's some article that comes out is trying to get you sold, and from CBR, trying to get you sold on the Marvels coming up with Brie Larson and some other chicks you've never heard of. Now here's the thing: the Marvels is not going to be a Birds of Prey type of bomb, which was hysterical to watch them panic in real time over trying to change the title of Birds of Prey because it was already so pretentious. I guess they thought that Margot Robbie was just going to print money or something. And I was like, yeah, when she was in short shorts and a tank top, that was when she was printing money with her assets. And now you covered her up in the next two movies, and those movies bombed. Maybe make the connection there. It's like, oh, she's stunning and brave. She doesn't need to sell sex. Like, yes, she really does, because sex sells quite well. So that movie is not gonna bomb because, believe it or not, Brie Larson actually has a fan base that Scarlett Johansson, Margot Robbie, and those other types, they don't really have, and I'm not sure why. I remember from the King Kong movie with what's that black guy's name? I don't know. He always plays the same role in every movie. A really mediocre movie, so I'm not exactly sure why she has so many people who are simping for her. Anyway, for Ghostbusters bombing, the Afterlife sequel, they were sort of blaming that on the Wu flu, except that there were movies during that period that obviously made money, so that's a little bit of copium. I think it's just because it looks like a stupid kids movie. It didn't have the original vibe of the film, like Ghostbusters 2016 with the four chicks, with that fat chick, Melissa McCarthy or something, and then that other fat chick who took nude photos of herself or something. It's like, you're not skinny. Why are you? Please put your clothes back on. Um, that movie bombed because it didn't feel like Ghostbusters. Afterlife didn't feel like Ghostbusters. Why, nobody saw it. Anyway, the thing is, they own the rights to that name Ghostbusters, which they have to do something with it because they own the rights to it. You could just make a comedy. Have you considered going back and watching the original Ghostbusters? I'm sure it came when it came out mid '80s, '86 or something, and try to do something like that, a comedy. It's got some scary elements in it, and they look at you, and then they look at what they want to do with it, and they're like, no, I don't think we can make comedies in current day and age because it's like political correctness rules. And then as it turns out, yeah, they really can't, because you see what they come up with. It's absolute dog shit. Anyway, so the call me crazy, but the Ghostbusters sequel, that Afterlife sequel, is probably also going to bomb, and then they'll have to put it aside for 5 years and then bring it back with new people. And if it's it's continued the woke thing, it's just going to continue to bomb. So anyway, to the woke crowd, the Temple of Doom movie is istophobic and terribly problematic for some reason, but it's not to us because we just see the world differently. All those istophobic terms aren't real. They're not organic. They're all just Bolshevik manipulative terms to control NPCs. Temple of Doom is just a fun, silly Hollywood film. We just don't have the same values as these lizard people in Hollywood, and that is becoming more clear every day. Honestly, this is a really exciting time to watch Hollywood because the losses are just going to keep stacking up, and there's no shortage of these things to talk about. So the girl at the Mary Sue was talking about all five of these indie films, and she was ranking them, and most of her point was talking about how much she liked the movie because of the German punching. She mentioned it like over a dozen times, to the point where you realize that she's been brainwashed into this bizarre belief entirely from a Hollywood narrative, like she's never read a book on history. She likes the movies because they're propaganda that she was brainwashed to believe, and she doesn't like the Temple of Doom as much because she was told that this is politically incorrect, and she like there's no original thought going on at all, because movies to the left are their only value is as propaganda. So, I mean, so were comic books too, and you saw what they did to comics. And honestly, Comicsgate and comics, and the Myers Diversity in Comics talking about comics, over 5 years ago, it's kind of fascinating because you're seeing comics was ahead of movies, and now what they're doing with movies is what they did to comics 10 years ago, to the point where you're going to see a fundamental restructure in Hollywood because they're not going to take their foot off the gas with woke. I know how crazy that sounds. You go like, you're talking about a multi-billion-dollar industry. You're saying they're going to burn it down? Yeah, and I'm not the only one saying that. I know I'm not the only one who's looking at this and go like, everyone is expecting Hollywood to turn us around, It's a religion. You don't turn around a religion. You take it to Jim Jones' logical, inevitable conclusion. I mean, things will restructure and reformat, and then finally, after things burn down, they might Phoenix like try to do something. But I think honestly, you're going to see a shift to. Here's the thing with live streams: YouTube, Odyssey, Rumble, BitChute, all that kind of stuff. Every minute you spend listening to a Rumble live stream is a minute you're not on board the mainstream narrative, to the point where those minutes add up because it's only 24 in a, 24/7. Every minute of alt media is a minute that the narrative is losing out on. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you guys all next episode.